Hey, greetings everyone, and good evening to you from our home here in Garland, Texas. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Thank you for joining us for another one of our every week Thursday evening Facebook Lives, where we share some thoughts, perspectives, and insights, and we answer a lot of the questions that you have along the scroll screen there. I think it's a great opportunity for us to stay in touch with all the folks here in Texas, but also all across the United States of America. There are a lot of things that we are facing right now, and most importantly, I just want to say to every one of you out there to stay healthy and to stay safe. And to those who have lost their loved ones as part of this COVID-19 crisis, our thoughts and prayers are with you. And let's make sure that we honor them by making, this commitment every single day to do what is necessary to preserve the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy here in the great United States of America. Now, this evening, I'm going to do things just a little bit different because I had 6 questions that were sent to me from the Camino Real Republican women of San Antonio, Texas. So I want to go through those 6 questions first, and then I want to talk about some other points, and then I'll go to your questions that you have over there on the rolling Facebook screen. So the Camino Real Republican women down in San Antonio, which is Bexar County, Texas, sent these 6 questions to me. And the first question that they sent to me was, volunteer turnout is going to be of huge importance to our candidates this year. We had a very low volunteer turnout locally in 2018. What can you, as party chair, because as you know, I'm running for the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, you can visit us at west4texas.com, west4texas.com. But they'd like to know, what can you, as a party chair, bring to the Bexar County area to rally volunteers? I think that that's a great question, not just for Bexar County, not just for the entire state of Texas, but for the entire United States of America when you look at the Republican electorate and the vote. And I think the most important thing is it's not about just going and registering people to vote. It's not about touting, millions of dollars that you raise. It's about giving people a vision. It's about showing leadership that people will rally to. And I think that is what has to happen in this election cycle. Is that without a doubt, there is a clear delineation about the ways that Texas, Bexar County, the United States can go. See, here in America, we believe that the individual is sovereign over the institution of government. But as I go through these questions, one of the prevailing themes that I want to get out there, and one of the prevailing themes that I consistently tried to get out, is that there are some people that believe that the institution of government is sovereign over the individual. And that's not what we believe in here in Texas. That's not what we believe in here in the United States of America. I think it's so important that we create an energy, we create a passion that is out there. And that's what leadership is all about. We had a saying, a motto in the Army, that leaders lead by example. Leaders lead from the front. Leaders know what right looks like. And when people can see the embodiment of our constitutional conservative principles and values in a state party chairman or in a leader who is unafraid, unabashedly embodying those principles, they will follow. So I think we have to go on offense. We cannot play defense. We cannot be reactionary. I think when you hear people say that they want to turn Texas blue, it's time for us to challenge them and ask them, what is it about Texas that you want to turn it into a different color? What it is about turning Texas blue? Does that mean that you want Texas to be more reflective of some of the places that people have left from because of their failed economic processes and policies? So that's what I think is important to get volunteer turnout, is an energy, is a passion, and a vision. And getting people to buy into that vision and getting everyone on the same sheet of music. The most important thing, folks, as I always say, is that this Republican Party, constitutional conservatism, is all about making victors, not victims. And I think that when you look at this COVID-19 crisis, there are some people, a certain political party, that would like to see more people being victims than victors. And so that's what I think we have to do to get more people to turn out as volunteers and more people to turn out to vote for our vision, our philosophy of governance, which is the basis of these great United States of America and the state of Texas. Question number 2, what specifically do you plan to do to encourage minority participation? Well, again, is to go out there into those minority communities. One of the great things about the Republican Party of Texas that a lot of Republicans don't even know is that this party was founded here in the great state of Texas on July the 4th, Independence Day of 1867, by 150 blacks. And I just think we need to get that message out there. I think that it is now the time that we go into those major urban population centers And we consistently deliver our message, not just in ramping up for an election cycle, but we make sure that we are there 24/7, 365. We have to show policy inclusiveness. This is no longer about outreach. This is about engagement. This is about showing that in those minority communities, especially the Black and Hispanic communities, those principles and values that they hold near and dear to are truly conservative principles and values. We've not done a really good job of doing that in the Republican Party, but I will praise President Donald Trump, who in 2016 said to the Black community, what have you got to lose? And look at what he has done. He has proven it with policies, being it the support to historic Black colleges and universities, criminal justice reform, economic opportunity zones. He's doing all of those things, but now we've got to start talking about the decimation of the family in the minority community, especially the Black community, the murdering of unborn babies. 71% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in urban centers. We don't see the left talking a lot about that. Of course, they want to talk about how COVID-19 somehow is racist, but then they're the ones in control of these major population centers, so we need to show their failures. And so I would ask you to tune in. One of the things that we've been releasing are trailers for a new documentary. The executive producer is my dear friend Larry Elder. I'm honored to be in this documentary. It's called Uncle Tom, because I think it's so important that we get out the real history of minority communities, especially the Black community in America, and its relationship with the Democrat Party. But we cannot just do that once and forget about it. So I'm glad that a young man by the name of Justin Malone from right here in Dallas, Texas, set upon himself to do this documentary. And the executive producer is Larry Elder. And I think you're going to be very pleased with that documentary that comes out June of 2020. And it's called Uncle Tom. So that's what I want to do, continue to build on those themes, on those messages, talk historically about the Black community, minority participation, and conservative principles and values. I'm not saying that we went back 70 or 80%, but let me tell you something. If you went back within Texas nationally, 20 to 25%, community, that's really freaking them out. So we can capitalize on that. And think about it. You're looking at a guy that was born February the 7th of 1961 in Hughes Spalding Hospital in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia. Hughes Spalding Hospital, when I was born, was a Blacks-only hospital. I grew up in the old Fourth Ward neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, the same neighborhood that produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and where Ebenezer Baptist Church, where he preached. We can do this. We just got to go back to first principles. And that's why my ideological mentor, Booker T. Washington, read his autobiography, Up From Slavery. And again, that message, that vision, is about making victors and not victims. Question number 3, is election fraud a problem needing action? If yes, where, how, and by whom? Yes, election fraud is a problem. By whom? You know, every single one of us needs to be concerned about election fraud. Now, there are some people out there that think that you should not pay attention or read the articles of the progressive socialist left or flip over every now and then to MSNBC and CNN. They think that those are just talking points. Only an idiot, let me repeat that, only an idiot would not study his opposition. And I learned that early on as a young lieutenant by reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War. If you don't study your opposition, if you don't understand their goals and objectives, you're not going to be prepared to be on this battlefield, especially this ideological battlefield. And so this week, let me give you a couple of things that popped out. Now, April the 2nd, Representative James Clyburn, who Nancy Pelosi put in charge of the House Pandemic Oversight Committee, he said this. He said, this pandemic gives Democrats a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. Let me repeat that. When you talk about voter fraud and everything, this pandemic gives Democrats a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. That was James Clyburn on April the 2nd. On April the 14th, beginning just Tuesday of this week, the title of this article in Time magazine, here's how the coronavirus crisis should change U.S. elections for good. Let me repeat that. Here's how the coronavirus crisis should change U.S. elections for good. And who was that article all about? former Attorney General of the United States of America, currently the chairman of the Democrat Redistricting Committee, Eric Holder. Eric Holder's quote is, "The coronavirus gives us an opportunity to revamp our electoral system so that it permanently becomes more inclusive and becomes easier for the American people to access." You know what this means? This is exactly why Nancy Pelosi tried to sneak into the stimulus package, that $2.2 trillion stimulus package that the American people, small businesses need, this whole thing about mail-in balloting, national mail-in balloting. And that just follows suit with what we saw coming out of California, which is the ballot harvesting, where in Southern California, you had Republicans that would declare winners on election day, but 5 or 6 days later, you still have ballots being mailed in. And even here in Texas, they tried to push our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, to accept mail-in balloting. Thank God the Attorney General said no. But what if that was a Democrat Attorney General here in the great state of Texas? This is, without a doubt, the major challenge for us, to make sure that the progressive socialist left is not able to use any type of chicanery by which they can, well, take away this election coming in. And they want to do it by the mail-in balloting system. And we know, and I don't care what anyone says, it is replete with fraud. And I think I know a little thing about voter fraud coming out of South Florida in 2012. So the most important thing is each and every one of us has to see something and say something. And we need to start preparing and getting ready to have those individuals that are out there on the ground to report the things that we're seeing. We have some individuals right here in Dallas County who are doing an incredible job of bringing out some of the voter fraud and inconsistencies with computer software and hardware in election and voting machines. But we need to make sure that we act upon that. And that's one of the key things as a chairman here in the Republican Party of Texas, is that I will make sure that that's on the forefront, because we cannot allow the 2020 election to be stolen from under us. But understand, if you pay attention, read this article, Time Magazine, April the 14th. Here's how the coronavirus crisis should change U.S. elections for good. Eric Holder. That should send a chill down each and every one of our spines. So I will continue to talk about this and make sure it is elevated to the highest levels here in the state of Texas. Number 4, we hear regularly how Democrats in Texas are better organized and outworking the Republicans. What is your thought about this? And as state chair, what will you do to change this perception? I think we can outwork the progressive socialist left. Yeah, sure. They pride themselves in being community organizers. Yeah, sure. They talk about all the funds and the money they get from George Soros or Michael Bloomberg, Every Town for Gun Safety, Moms Demand Action. We here in Texas have an organization called the Texas State Rifle Association. I think it's very important that the so many gun-owning, legal, law-abiding gun-owning Texans should get behind this organization. That's imperative for us to do. Okay, so I had a Marco Rubio moment. Who cares? But it's so important that we get behind the Texas State Rifle Association. You think about who really organized things in that protest on January the 20th in Virginia. It was the Virginia Civil Defense League. Who organized the protest there in Michigan that we recently saw against Governor Gretchen Whitmer's excessive, I tell you what, extension beyond her constitutional rights? That was the Michigan Conservative Coalition. So I think it's so important that we look at our grassroots organizations and we make sure we have strong grassroots organizations that can work from the bottom up so that we can be out there all across the great state of Texas, all across the United States of America, to include our major urban population centers. I remember speaking to a Republican women's group up here in Dallas, Texas, and I was talking about policy of inclusiveness. I was talking about engagement. And you know what they told me? You know, Colonel West, you're Black, you can say these things, you can go into those neighborhoods, but, you know, us as white women, we really can't do that. So why is it that white, liberal, progressive socialists can go into the Black communities or Hispanic communities and do exactly what we say that we're afraid to do? It's time to step outside our comfort zones. It's time to be emboldened. It's time to be encouraged. And that's the most important things. And as a state party chairman, I want to make sure that I arm people to be able to go in there, being on the same sheet of music, being able to deliver a message. We've got to build fertile ground all across these major population centers. We have to be community organizers ourselves. And why not? Because we have a better message. When you look at the people that really need to hear about a conservative constitutional message, it's the people in the minority communities. It's the people in the major urban population centers, exactly where we see the greatest amount of failure of the leftist policies. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to organize ourselves into an army, and we're going to go all the way down to the squad level. And we're going to deploy people. We're going to give them task and purpose and their message points to be out there and be successful. We're going to back them up because I'm going to be right there with you in this fight. And that's how we're going to change things around. We're going to out hustle the other side. You know, it scared the bejesus out of people back in 2010 when we first had an incredible constitutional conservative grassroots movement called the Tea Party. It so scared them that they unleashed a federal government agency by the name of the Internal Revenue Service against just everyday Americans who just believed in individual rights, freedom, liberty, and sovereignty over the institution of government. They wanted fiscal responsibility. We can recreate that movement, and we will recreate that movement. Question number 5. What are your plans to fix the fractured Republican Party of Texas? You know, one thing I always tell folks, in a circular firing squad, nobody wins. The only person that wins in a circular firing squad is you opposite a person that can't shoot straight. I don't believe in the circular firing squad. And we talk about a fractured Republican Party of Texas or a fractured Republican Party. Let me talk to you about this vignette from the movie Braveheart, one of my favorite movies. After the first Battle of Sterling, you know, they had gathered William Wallace and all of his captains together, and they started knighting them and giving them all type of honors and what have you. And as soon as they did that, guess what the sons of Scotland started to do? They started to fight amongst themselves about who was the rightful king of Scotland. And then they looked up because Mel Gibson's character, William Wallace, was starting to walk out of the hall. And they said to him, "Sir William, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to fight the English. I'm not going to sit here and argue over the scraps of the table that come from Edward the Longshanks." That's what we need to do. We need to be focused on who our political opponent is and their ideology, their philosophy of governance. And that's progressive socialism. Progressive socialism that believes in wealth redistribution. Progressive socialism that believes in nationalizing economic production, that believes in creating and expanding a welfare nanny state, that believes in social egalitarianism, that everybody's equal. And they embrace a theory of secular humanism. I don't think many progressive socialists were upset that this past Easter, churches were deemed non-essential and were not open. As a matter of fact, it was the Democrat governor, Andy Beshear, over in Kentucky, that said that he would take down the license plates of people that just tried to drive through and take communion. We don't want to see that happen in Texas. So again, it comes back to leadership that focus people not on factionism, but focus people against the real enemy of liberty and freedom. The United States of America stood up against the tyranny of Great Britain. Here in Texas, we stood up against the tyranny of Santa Ana in Mexico. Those are two very incredible stories. And when you think about the service and the sacrifice and the commitment that people made here in Texas back 183, 184 years ago, shame on us if we would rather fight within ourselves than fight for the incredible victory, this incredible state, the Lone Star State that they left to us. So I'm not going to fight and throw stones at Republicans. I'm going to fight against those people that don't believe in liberty and freedom. And I ask you to join me in that fight here in the Republican Party of Texas. Last question. What ideas do you have to convince students that the Republican platform is the way to go? Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing, because many of you have your students at home right now with you, every day, tell them that you love them and tell them that free does not equal freedom. When you allow yourselves to be subjugated to someone who is giving you something for free, you're economically enslaved. You're not economically empowered. That's why the American people have to get back to work. Politico this week, 13th April, they ran an article that was titled, "Economic Meltdown Gives Democrats New Hope in Texas." Ask your student, your son your daughter, grandson, granddaughter, do they want to live in a Texas that is economically empowered or economically enslaved? Do they want to have a bright future? Do they want to be subjugated and subject to the institution of government? You know, I'm an honorary advisory board member for Turning Point USA. I'm also one of the speakers for the Young Americas Foundation. My last trip onto a college campus was the University of Michigan back at the end of February to talk about the Second Amendment on that campus. Not exactly a conservative institution. That's what we have to do. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going on college and university campuses. I've been going into high schools and talking about these things. I've spoken at homeschool graduations. I've spoken at many different high schools on this subject. And that's what I'll continue to do. Because we have to get the next generation to believe, to buy into the American ideal, the Texas ideal. We didn't fight for liberty and freedom from Mexico just so we could surrender it to a different institution of government. So those are the 6 questions. Volunteer turnout, encourage minority participation, dealing with election fraud, becoming better organized and strong at the grassroots level, plans to fix the fractured Republican Party of Texas, and the ideas to convince our students, our next generation, that freedom is worth fighting for. Young people, just remember one thing. Those kids in Hong Kong, they were fighting to preserve the very thing that you want to surrender. That's unconscionable. Can't allow that to happen. And I won't, excuse me, I won't allow that to happen. Not on my watch. Okay. Let's go over here and look at some of the questions that we have. Conchetta said, will Trump be able to stop voter fraud? I think he can. This is what happens when you wake up too early in the morning, you run too many miles, and you don't hydrate well during the day. I think that President Trump can stop the voter fraud, but it's imperative on each and every one of us that we have a part to do down here at our level, Texas or whatever state, to make sure that we stand against this national mail-in ballot initiative that the progressive socialist left is trying to implement. They're telling us exactly who they are and what they want to do. You know, today I spent some time looking at MSNBC, looking at CNN, and every single one of those commentators were talking about why the American people shouldn't get back to work. I want you to think about it. You know, I woke up this morning and I checked the statistics. At 5 a.m. this morning, the population of the United States of America, 328,239,523 estimate. The cases, coronavirus cases, 5 o'clock this morning, 605,390. Amount recovered, 36,076. Fatalities, unfortunately, 24,582. In the state of Texas, we have a population, estimated population, 28,995,881. Cases reported, 15,492. Recovered cases, 3,150. Fatalities, 364. That was at 5 o'clock this morning. The Dallas County, 5 o'clock this morning, had less than 40 deaths due to COVID-19. As of 4:30 this afternoon, we were up to 43. But the news this morning was that 22.03 million Americans have filed jobless claims. 22.03 million Americans unemployed. Now, I just cannot surrender to the fear, the panic, the paranoia, and the hysteria. It says we cannot, in America, in Texas, get people back to work. We have seen over 250,000 jobless claims here in the state of Texas. We know what's happening with our oil and gas industry because of the chicanery of Russia and Saudi Arabia. We cannot allow ourselves to be ground down into the dust. And so we have got to get the American people back to work. That's imperative. And we already see some of the corruption coming through with this, stimulus cash. Let me give you a couple examples. Out in California, if you haven't read about it, Gavin Newsom is giving $125 million to illegals in California, $500 in cash. I had a dear friend of mine who is an administrator at a very prominent university, and she's a conservative. I won't say her name or anything, but she's a pretty solid citizen. And she has already had some of her international students asking, why are they getting stimulus money? Because there are some non-resident alien college students getting stimulus money. We don't want to be addicted to the crack cocaine of government largesse. Dignity comes from being out there and working yourself, not locked up in the house and waiting for a universal basic income. That's a socialist model. We've got to get this country back going. Melina Pierkarski, when did President Trump pass that care bill with so much fat in it? Why did he cave to that BS? Melina, you've got to ask the president. And I think that sometimes we get so involved and we've got to do something that we end up not doing the exact right thing. Remember, it was President Bush back in 2008 that said we have to violate the free market in order to save the free market. Many of the decisions that caused the 2008 meltdown in the mortgage industry, you go back 30 years prior in 1978 with the Community Reinvestment Act of Jimmy Carter, who came up with this mantra, every American deserves to own a home. Look at how it ended up 30 years later. Fannie and Freddie, all the government-sponsored enterprises, mortgage-backed securities, all of these things. Maybe there was a good intention back in 1978, but it ended up being bad. And that's another great lesson that you should teach your children and your grandchildren. But that's what happens when you depend upon government to make us all equal and redefine the rights that we have in the Bill of Rights to be aligned with an ideological agenda. And speaking of ideological agendas and rights, I'm very concerned about what we see happening with some of these governors, some of these mayors, even here in Dallas County with County Judge Clay Jenkins. I don't know when it happened that these people believe that they got so much power that they don't have to adhere to our Constitution, to our rule of law. As a matter of fact, on Tucker Carlson last night, the governor of New Jersey, Governor Murphy, said that he did not consider the Bill of Rights when he instituted and ordered his mandates, his edicts. That's why people took to the streets of Michigan over Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And I think that right now the American people said, okay, we got it, we understand, but we can't sit back here and cause ourselves to be driven into a state of destitution. We got to do what's right by the American people. Let's see. These are the days that try men's souls. Mike Hancock, you're absolutely right. Thomas Paine, The Crisis. These are the days these are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from their duties. But to him who makes a stand, they will deserve the admiration of all men and women. It's time for Americans to make a stand. One thing that does disturb me about this entire COVID-19 crisis, and I'm even seeing it here in Texas, how easily we have just acquiesced, subjugated, surrendered, abdicated our individual liberties. See, this is not just going to be a one-time thing. This is going to be something that's recurring. And I think about 2017 to 2018 with the common influenza season, we had 45 million cases. 2017, 2018. We had 810,000 hospitalizations. We had 61,000 Americans who lost their lives because of the common influenza in 2017, 2018. Now, I know people are going to start yelling and screaming. This is all different. But really, is it that different? Why didn't we take these draconian measures then? We were treated like adults then. We were treated like adults when the swine flu, H1N1. See, American people, my fellow Texans, you got to take responsibility yourselves. We can take these guidelines, and then remember what I said, guidelines, not mandates, not dictates, not orders. We can take these guidelines and make sure we're adhering to them. I don't like someone telling me what I must do or else, like we see man in Philadelphia getting dragged off of a bus. I think it's going just a little bit too far. We have to be treated like adults. No more disinformation and misinformation. Let's get Americans back to work. And on my Facebook page, I've talked about 5 points, 5 recommendations that we could use to gradually get America back to where we need to be, back to work. We're not talking about flipping on the switch completely now. No, this is a phased approach. Ladies and gentlemen, a phased approach is better than having 22.03 million Americans unemployed. Pammy Doan, why are they pushing Bill Gates' vaccine on us? Me and my people will not take it here in Kentucky. The governor refused to shut down abortion clinics. Also, he's a Democrat. So as for us people, we don't have a chance. Pammy, great question. And I think that's another thing that we need to examine during this COVID-19 crisis. There are some people that are making this decision about essential and non-essential based upon their ideological agenda. Now, that governor in Kentucky wanted to take down license plates of people that just wanted to drive through, stay in their car, drive through, take communion on Easter Sunday. But yet the abortion clinics stay open. The hypocrisy of that is laughable. That at this period in time, we're supposed to be so concerned about, losing lives and preserving life. But then we want to continue to murder innocent preborn lives. That's the ideological agenda of the left. And that's why here in the Republican Party of Texas, Republicans, period, we don't need to be fighting each other. We know who the political opposition is. And that's who we should be standing up against. There was a clear delineation. And coming back to the question that the Camino Real Republican women asked me about, what specifically do you do to plan to encourage minority participation? Think about this. Since 1973, Roe versus Wade, 20 million Black babies have been murdered in the womb. And we have people upset, but because, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 Blacks in urban centers have succumbed to complications with COVID-19, when the real issue and question in these inner city communities that the left has been in charge of for the last 5 to 6 decades, why is there a problem of obesity? Why is there a problem of high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes? Why is it that food stamps, which were the original intent, 1967 Food Stamp Act, was for lower income people to be able to go out and buy good, nutritious foods in grocery stores in their communities? Who came up with the idea of this electronic benefits transfer card, the EBT card? And now you can use an EBT card anywhere. Convenience stores, liquor stores. And if you say that we should restrict the use of the EBT card, whoa, man, that Maxine Waters, she goes into a tizzy. That's racist. But yet, look at what it's caused. So those are the kind of points we have to be bringing out. Donna, Grand Staff Steward, are you a born-again Christian? Ma'am, I gave my life to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in January of 1980. I was raised up in the church, 4th Street United Methodist Church on Boulevard Avenue in Atlanta. But as a young freshman at University of Tennessee, I made the decision for myself. Don't mean I'm perfect. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I got more faults, failures, shortcomings than anybody else. And that's why last week, Holy Week, was so important, because that week is all about redemption. It is about reconciliation. It's about restoration. It's about resurrection. And that's what being a Christian is all about. I know that there are so many things that I cannot do in and of myself, but I know, as it says in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And I do have God's representative on earth who whacks me upside the head and keeps me straight. It's my wife, Angela. Been with her 30 years. I got a lot of lumps on my head. She added a couple more today. Tracy Dixon Reed, you ever run for president, you have my vote. Hey, I'm just trying to make sure we get the Republican Party here in Texas squared away so we keep progressive socialism out. We hold Texas, we hold the nation. Christine Cook, what does it matter? We will have to pay taxes for the stimulus check next year. Hey, you know, Christine, you bring up a great point. Has anyone heard of any of these elected officials not getting a paycheck? 22.03 million Americans unemployed, not getting a check. So really, when you think about it, what they're giving back to people is what they already paid anyhow. I mean, this is their tax money. So why aren't these elected officials saying, hey, I'm not taking a check either? Wouldn't that be a great example of leadership? Because as far as I know, I mean, they're wherever they are, drawing a paycheck that we are paying, even though they put 22.03 million of us out of work. It doesn't add up. Doesn't make sense. That's why people are taken to the streets, because what they see is exactly what James Clyburn said. This pandemic gives Democrats a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. I want y'all to never forget that quote. I want those of you here in Texas to never forget the title of that article in Politico that ran this week. Economic meltdown gives Democrats a new hope in Texas. What kind of people wish your economic demise so that they can be elevated to and attain power and control? That's why I don't need to fight with other Republicans. I got some folks that I need to fight against. Folks that don't believe in the Constitution that I took an oath on 31 July 1982 to support and defend. That's the bottom line. Angie Leonard, thank you so very much. Deborah Hancock, thank you. Judith Hench, hello from Central Florida, miss seeing you. Well, you see me right now. Okay, this is the beauty of technology. I can be here in the eastern hills of Garland, Texas, and I can be talking right into your living room. And I will continue to do so. That's what leadership is all about, communication. Rick Wabi, I hate the fact that the Dems in Florida District 22 robbed. Hey, look, God closes a door, Rick, and opens up a better door. All I know is that I need to be a humble and obedient servant to him, and I am where he would have me to be. You know, trust in the Lord with all thy heart, lean not upon your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him. He'll direct your path. That's Proverbs 3:5-6. Let's see, Paul Walker, are you going to be on a conservative cruise in the future? Would love to meet you. Hey, Paul, you know, I was in the Army, not the Navy. I've been on cruises. You know, this past summer we were on the Media Research Center cruise. It was 10 days, came out of Rome, Italy, went all the way through Mediterranean, the Aegean, you know, Greece and everything. Dude, I was going nuts. 10 days on a boat. I was looking for terra firma, but we'll see. But the most important thing for me right now is to fight for the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State, because we got to hold on to Texas. The progressive socialist left is itching to get Texas. Mike Bloomberg is going to dump $8 to $10 million by way of his Every Town for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action to promote gun control candidates here in the state of Texas. He only spent $2 million in Virginia. Look what he did. That dog don't hunt down here, Michael Bloomberg. So you can come on down. You can spend your $8 to $10 million. But this old boy, he's going to make sure you have no success here in the great state of Texas. Okay, a couple more questions, then we're going to say goodnight, let you guys go and look at, I don't know, reruns of March Madness, last year's college football season. I'm hurting, man. Not having March Madness, that was a killer. Francis Garcia Jones, Mr. West, will you be at the rally in Austin this weekend? Francis Garcia Jones, I did not know about the rally in Austin. You know, we'll try to find out about that. And I don't know if I can ride my motorcycle down there. That might not be good social distancing. But if I can be down there in Austin, I will be down there in Austin for the rally. Mike Lynn, Whitmer is trying for Biden's VP, no doubt about it, but she is not going to make it. Let's see, Walter Schate, S-C-H-A-T-T-E, Southeast Texas, checking in, sir. Hey, Walter, Army Strong, Pleasure. Thank you. See you guys back down there, Beaumont, Jefferson County, Port Arthur. Nice area. Hey, one thing I love boudin. So if I come down Southeast Texas, make sure I have some boudin. Nisha, Andrea Ramey. Man, look, I don't know what the Lord has in store for me, but right now my focus is on state chairman. Jenny Dunham Young, thank you for your service. It's my pleasure and honor. Shelley Joe, attention. You will not have to pay taxes on the stimulus money received. It's considered a tax credit. It's not treated as income. I will tell you something else, Shelley Joe. We need to have a tax holiday, individual tax holiday. They need to tighten their belts up there in Washington, D.C. This type of economic pain did not have to be, implemented against the American people. But we're resilient. We're tough. We'll come back. Vincent Cotramano, when will it be time to fight back? At some point, we have to draw a line in the sand. Vincent, I think a line is being drawn. When you look at someone like Governor Murphy in New Jersey, who said that he did not take into account the Bill of Rights when he made the decisions to these mandates and edicts, that's not cool. That is not cool whatsoever. He is not a king. He is not a duke. He is not a lord over anybody, and we're not serfs. And when you look at what is happening here in the great state of Texas, these cities that are controlled by the progressive socialist left, they're doing their own little thing. We got to get them under control. Best way to get them under control is to get them out of control, out of power. We're going to be working on that. And last word, Rhonda Snipes. Keep fighting, keep Texas red, red, red. You got it, Rhonda. We're going to do exactly that. Hey, folks, it's 7:42. I just want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your busy schedules to spend a little time with me here. Thank you to the Camino Real Republican women of San Antonio, Bexar County, Texas. And let me tell you something, Camino Real women, you guys are really special. You are the guardians of the incredible site that we call the Alamo. And at that site is a thing called the cenotaph. It's that memorial to those men who fought there, 183 who gave their lives, made a stand for 13 days so that we could have a Republic of Texas and now a state of Texas. I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee, and our nickname, our motto, the Volunteers, is because men left that great state and came here to fight for liberty and freedom. I'm just another generation of a Tennessee volunteer that came to fight. As I always tell the folks here in Texas, always remember that the first president of the Republic of Texas was from Tennessee, Sam Houston. The second president of the Republic of Texas was from my birth state of Georgia, Mirabeau Lamar. People have always come here to this state to fight. There are some people that are coming here to this state to fundamentally transform it. It ain't happening.